Hello there, this is Dave Allen for Geeky, and today we're looking at an application called Backpack, and it's for creating podcasts. And it's more of a performance sort of thing than it is a recording sort of thing, because basically you sort of work it as you go and you play the sounds as you want them, and this is how it works. So the basics of it is this: we've got some buttons on here, and on these buttons we've got some sounds. So for instance, I've got this sound here for the sweep intro. And that plays the sweep intro followed by the steam released sound. To get these sounds in there, what you do is you hold down on one of these buttons and you go into your library or into iCloud or files, wherever you've got your sounds. I've got a library here and I've got some sound effects. It doesn't have to be a sound effect, it could be something you've recorded already. So maybe you've got a recording of an intro like I have, or an outro that you want to add to your podcast. So let's put this in metallic on there already, and that's what it sounds like. So let's go for this one here. We've got a mixer. If we sort of double tap on these and here's it puts it to the standard 70% on there, which is enough, and you can move the finger up and down on this here to get it to a level that you want. And I'll put the master at about 80% there, and the mixer, I'll put these sounds down just a little bit lower, and the microphone, I want that. Well, if you go too high with that, it's going to start clipping, which is when you get that red sort of thing around there. So you want that to sort of be around about 70 or maybe 80, depending on how your microphone is. So that's the basic mixer that you got there. Over on this side here, we've got a notes thing. You can put stuff in there so that you can sort of give yourself an idea of what it is you're talking about in your podcast to help you sort of remember stuff. So you can have a bit of a list in there. We've got this thing here at the bottom, which is the microphone. And basically you tap on that there and it will actually start recording your voice. But at the moment it's not recording anything because you haven't pressed the recording button. This is like perhaps when you're just practicing. So let's just turn that off for the moment. And we've got some settings over here as well. And then these settings here, you can do the external microphone gain. Depends what microphone you got in there. Probably need to put that around about 60 or 70% to get a sort of good level on it. And you can go to mic effects, and in mic effects you get possibilities of different sounds from the microphone. So you want a warmer sound or a voiceover sound, go for the default, and we've got a smooth cut, and we've got one here, low end, less mud, and presence. So you can see there's a shape there on the parametric EQ to give you an idea of where these things are working. We've got a noise gate on there as well, which you set with this threshold, ratio, and attack and release. And basically that's going to clear out any sort of background sounds that might be sort of going on in the background that you want to get rid of. Okay, so that's your microphone there. So maybe you want to go for heavy presence boost on there. And you just basically choose each one of these as you like. You can create new EQs in there. So for instance, in this parametric EQ, you might want to do something at a specific level. So on parametric EQ2, you might choose to change this, because on my microphone at about 1000 it needs to be sort of given a bit of extra gain, and this Q is like the width of the band that it's looking at. So if you want to do live streaming, then you're going to have to pay some extra on this one here. You can set up some series shortcuts, you can set up some keyboard shortcuts, and if you've got a MIDI connected you can do that as well. You can change the size of the Soundpads. So that's with the large, and then this is with the small one. So it depends on how many sound pads you have, and also whether you want to maybe spread them out. Another thing you can do is you can have more than one page of the sounds. We've got set 3 there. Just got 2 on the second page. Dim played pads. So this is a way of reminding you that you've played the pad and you don't need to play it again. So for instance, if you're playing, say, the Good and Geeky intro, you'll see it been dimmed, and you know that you don't have to play it again, and you've played it already for the recording that you're making. You've got automatic ducking. So that's handy because automatic ducking gives you the fact that the sound of these, whatever's on the pads, will go lower whenever you're using the microphone. And you've got various ways of doing that. This is the standard one, or the default one, and you can change it to that if you want to. So that gives it a bit of a slower sort of attack and release of the ducking. And then you can change these here as well, so that for instance you want to go for more ducking, so more ducking or less ducking, and it'll bring down the level of the Soundpad while you're using the microphone. And this attack here is how fast it is with the going to the ducking from normal level sound. So we want to sort of have a fairly sort of quick attack on that there, so it goes down quickly, and then the release can be sort of a little bit slower maybe. And then we've got a Soundpad fade out. So when you're playing a sound, it comes in at whatever level you've set it at, and then you can have a fade out from that level of sound to the 0, so that you can go either into another sound, or if you want to have it so you don't have any sounds at all in the background, you go just with the microphone, and you can change the duration of that if you wish as well. I've got auto pause set on this here, so the auto pause basically means that it'll stop recording when there's no sound pads playing and the microphone is off. I've got a low cut filter so that it reduces any hum and rumble. So you might have something going on in the background, maybe say an air conditioner, or maybe there's a hard disk on your desk which is making a bit of a hum, and you want to get rid of it using this low cut filter. Probably better to find yourself a good place to do the recording rather than messing about with that, but still. We've got mic compression on there, so give us a smooth loud sound is recommended, so I just left that on. We've got compressed audio, so if you need to change the file size and make them smaller, use compressed audio. Depends on the microphone they're using, whether you want to use dual mono mic, but if you've got a stereo microphone, you can put those two stereo channels together into one channel, so it's going to be like a dual mono mic. Automatic gain control, this is if you're using the inbuilt microphone on your device, and it's probably a good idea to have that on. And then we've got title for file name, and then if you want to use a Bluetooth mic, you can do that as well. Reset settings, so if you want to put everything back to default values, you can do that. If you want to empty all the sound pads, you click on this empty sound pads button, and then delete all clips or delete all recordings. You can do all of that there. This is where you've got all your recordings and clips and so on, so you can look at all of them in there. So you've got all the stuff that's been brought into the application, so any clips and any recordings. This is looking at just the clips that I've got in there, and then this is all the recordings that I've made. Okay, so when you're ready to start a podcast, this is what you do. So click on record, and then there's nothing happening at the moment because I haven't got any pads going and I haven't got the microphone set up either. But starting my podcast, what I want to do is I'll start up the background music first of all. And after it's played for a couple of seconds, then I'm going to start with the microphone. Hello there, this is Dave Allen, this is Geeky and Geeky, and we're starting a new podcast. Hello there, this is Dave Allen for Good and Geeky Podcast, and this is where we look at applications on the Mac and the iOS platforms to see what we can do with them and make things better for ourselves using technology. So now that it's finished there, the microphone's still going, so I can still record into this, and basically I can play other stuff in this here as well if I want to. Now, another thing that I can show you that you can do with this here is if I'm playing something, for instance, this one here, sweep intro, and I want to change that so that it is louder, I can do that from here. And I can also set the amount of fade from here, if it's going to fade or not fade, or I can set it so that it will loop. You've got auto rewind, and we've got the ducking. So if I've got duck there, it means that if it's a green, that means it's set to do ducking, and if it's white, it's not doing any ducking. We can do a pin on it, we can change the title of it, we can move it to a different place, and you can change the colours of these pads as well, so that maybe you want to have all of your recorded stuff in one colour, and then maybe have some of your bumpers and intros and whatever else in different colours, so you know which is which. Oh yeah, the other thing that you can do with this here is you can have it so that it'll play next pad when finished. So at the moment that's set to play the next pad, which is a Steam released, and you can see that it puts a little arrow on there to show which one it's going to play next. Let's click on done, and obviously you've got a button on there to delete the whatever's on the pad as well if you want to. We've got notes over here. You can put some notes in there so you can have an idea what it is you're talking about when you're doing the podcast. Okay, so now that it's finished doing the recording, because I've turned the microphone off and there's no pads playing, I can click on there and finish, and I can give it this a name. So there's my new podcast. Click on save. And in this one here, you've got your title, new podcast. You can put your artist name in there. You can put a description in there. You can say what format you want it to be. And then you can choose whether you want to go for the whole file or whether you want to choose just a region of it. So in this one here, maybe you want to trim some of it out. So maybe you want to trim the first part of it out, which you can do quite easily. Or maybe you want to trim the end of it off. And then you can put this out either as audio or as video. And then we've got video here, so you can send it out to video, and in this video you can change some of the pictures in there. And this blue part in here, that gives you a bit of a animation of what's going on there. So you can have the number of waves, that maybe one more waves in there. You can change the opacity of those or the strength of those and the speed of the animation. And basically when you play this video, you get sort of basically some sort of thing playing in the background. So that's what it looks like when you got that sort of animation. This is with the waves on there. Hello there, this is Dave Allen, this is Geeky, and we're starting a new podcast. We can add pictures into this here as well, so maybe you want to go to the photo library and put a picture in there. So maybe you want to have that picture in there as your first one. There's some things that are not quite right with this application at the moment. This actually has been updated, and I think it was working with the previous update, but now it's messing about. You can change the shape of the video, so maybe it's going to go for YouTube, in which case you want to have the 16 by 9. If you have one 9 by 16, if you want it to make it a short one, maybe do a video short, or if it's going to be a reel on Instagram. This is for Instagram when you're going to send off as a square sort of shape there. This application is a good little application for making podcasts, but it's one for doing as a performance, as it were, and you kind of got to prepare yourself before you get started. So that, for instance, you want to have all your intros and outros set up. You want to have your music chosen. You want to have all the buttons set up for your basic sort of bumpers and things that you want to put inside of your podcast that you can play as you go. And you've got to kind of get used to the fact that when you're using this, you're actually sort of performing. It's a little bit more difficult to chop some voice out if you have got some background music on there. You might have to do a re-record of that part of the podcast to be able to do it. And maybe if you're not so good doing stuff live, I mean, sometimes I fluff my words and I have to sort of like repeat some things and do a sort of re-record, then maybe you want to have a look at some other application where you can sort of mix things and change things and delete things a little bit easier because it's all on different tracks. Okay, so this is Dave Allen for Good and Geeky. We'll be looking at an application called Backpack, and I kind of recommend it. It's quite a good application if you're good at doing sort of podcasts as a performance. But bye now. Talk to you again soon.